Welcome, everyone, to episode 2 of the Nonprofits This Week. Tonight, we're going to go to John Hopkins University, where they're serving as an example of not only just slashing aid or cutting spending, but perhaps as a dismantling of the education system in this country. AJ has more to break down.
Thank you. Yes, at John Hopkins University, they're set to eliminate over 2,000 jobs following the current administration's decision to cut $800 million in funding from the U.S. Agency for International Development, also known as USAID. This reduction will affect about 250 positions in the United States and almost 2,000 roles across 44 countries, impacting the Bloomberg School of Public Health, which is their medical school, and the affiliated nonprofit, which focuses on international health initiatives like maternal health or disease prevention. So the loss of funding threatens critical health projects worldwide, including efforts to combat HIV, malaria, and tuberculosis. These layoffs come after several major universities have faced financial challenges due to significant federal funding cuts. This story is from CNN by Kanita Iyer on March 13, 2025.
Yeah. And, AJ, when I first read this, the way that I took it, or the main point that I took away from this was another attack on our education systems in this country. But I think that you highlight a little bit different point, although both points are adjoined in some way. You talk a lot about the cuts to international employees. What kind of impacts will that have by all of these people being unemployed?
Yeah, because of these cuts due to the dismantling of USAID, this means that the majority of the layoffs are going to be international employees. One of the spokespersons for John Hopkins said that they're really proud of the work that their international employees have done. Like they care for mothers and infants, they fight diseases, they provide clean drinking water. They advance several other critical life-saving efforts around the world. And they mentioned that this is actually going to also affect the Center for Communication Programs. This program is the university's messaging around public health. And this is an extremely sensitive and important program because science communication regarding public health is not something that we should be messing with. It really upsets me when science isn't valued, okay? But this isn't new. During the current president's first round in 2016, there was a major focus on dismantling anything scientific. That's where this major protest called March for Science came from. Scientists were so pissed off that, things get real when scientists come out of the lab and they go out on the street and protest, right? It's like, yeah, so people need to stand up right now. They need to speak up. It's the only way that we're going to get through all of this.
And we talked about on Monday night, this kind of alignment with Christianity and with the conservative party. And of course, our president is conservative. His first run at the presidency, or his first presidential term, like you mentioned, conservative. Again, cuts to education, which we see conservative governments across the country doing. And that, I think, speaks to, again, the cuts to science, the cuts to health programs. For some reason, conservatives don't want to see people get educated. And they actually do better when their voters are uneducated, because I think that is the class that tends to vote for them. The non-college educated, the working class, and that's no swipe at the non-college educated and working class, but it just seems that the conservatives think that they can do without research, they can do without education, and runs on our public education are happening alongside runs on our colleges and universities. So, that's my position on why I think education is always under attack. But Infidel, you had a point about how hypocritical this all is. And I just wanted to hear your side of how this displays hypocrisy.
Well, we hear time and again that party of the family, pro all these, buzzwords that are cheap, a lot cheaper than aid that actually affects the issue. But, this, we see pro-life, party of the family, and yet a lot of these programs that are going to be impacted are going to have very significant global health impacts on mothers and children. So, I mean, it's just, they're cutting maternal health programs, vaccinations. I mean, these are very direct harm issues. And what I think is really appalling about it is that they're willing to allow this to happen for women and children and families to actually suffer in an effort to promote their own political agenda over actual care. It's just hollow. It's not real. It's just lip service, because this is also a huge impact on what we refer to as soft diplomacy. We generate a lot of goodwill across the world by these types of non-controversial programs, and instead, what we're doing is right in the middle of it, saying, "All right, you're cut, you're off," and that does quite the opposite. That has an even greater impact on the opposite side, because here we are, we're doing these things, and now you're just leaving us in the lurch.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, go ahead, AJ. Go ahead, please.
I was going to say, speaking of their agenda, this cut to John Hopkins University isn't specifically to this university. It came due to the cuts to USAID. And let's just get one thing straight, okay? It had nothing to do with the waste or mismanagement of funds. This is about one thing and one thing only, and it's that transgender danger. Like, that was one of the main claims or issues that the administration has had and shared publicly. For example, the press secretary, Caroline Leavitt, said during a press conference, she said that USAID was awarded a $2 million grant for sex changes in Guatemala.
So I want to inject there, because I think what you're saying highlights a different point, or highlights an important point that I think is kind of being glossed over, not by us, but I think just from the understanding in general. Who are the people that are being targeted? They're not Americans, right? In this case, people that live far away, right? It's people that are not like us, it's those people. And we find this boogeyman where it's okay if they suffer, right? Regardless of what we say. Now, speaking to Infidel's, hypothesis on hypocrisy, these people that are saying, well, this is the way we are a pro-family, we are pro-life, we follow the laws of Jesus, don't do any of those things when the people are brown or light brown, or they live in some far-off country, or they're just different, right? And so, yeah, you're right. While it might not be an attack on the education system itself or on John Hopkins University itself, the ripple effects, right? The second and third order effects by attacking that university are monumental, and they affect a lot of other people, that are just different, right? And so, AJ, I'm sorry for interrupting, but I had to get that out there. So please continue if you wanted to follow up on that.
No, you're completely correct. Like, this is a whole cycle that they're doing. It's a circle. It goes like they cut the funds for USAID, and they don't realize the impact that has not only on all of these brown people that live far away, but also on our own education system. So it's insane to me. But like as I mentioned, this whole thing about the sex changes in Guatemala. If you go and do a quick search and look at the facts, you see that that's not the case. The money was awarded to an LGBTQ nonprofit organization, but it was being used for more than just gender-affirming care. It included things like general health care, right? But for trans people, yeah, that's fine. But it was like general health care, like mental health, domestic violence prevention, speech therapy, all this kind of thing. And only about 350,000 have actually been given to them. But no, obviously it's not being used for sex change surgeries. And if you look at it, it's such a small amount.
Well, we saw that DOJ was identifying or falsely identifying I don't know what the right way, I guess false claims, making false claims on amounts that were being spent on certain things that were not taking place at all. And even if that were the case, right, these cuts across the board are just short-term spending cuts that appease the wealthy in this country. But human beings as a species are being set back because of the research that is being eliminated. The way that we fight diseases and that we learn how to save lives better. And so, Infidel, I wanted to ask you, when it comes to the cuts, are there other ways that we could make cuts and still save the lives of people, continue our research, and save money?
Well, and just throwing this out here random, if we consider the Tesla and SpaceX contracts that the government spends every year, and I'm not saying that some of these aren't for valuable purposes, but we could save more money than Doge has done going around nickel and diming what they have at the expense of purely random algorithms. I mean, when your effort, because all of it's completely random, of course, we're just doing what's unnecessary, but if somehow things like the Enola Gay gets cut because, as far as being mentioned, because the word gay is in it. And that's what we see with a lot of this. It fits their political agenda because they run on this policy where you would think that 30% of the U.S. budget goes to USAID and foreign aid in general and all these other things. And really, when it comes down to it, it suits our self-interest to keep this because first, we're building goodwill in other places, saving lives. That's an added bonus. I know that may not mean something to some of these people that we're talking about, but also our own self-interest. I mean, did we forget the last pandemic? A lot of this money that we use as far as research and healthcare goes out to help get an idea of what's going on in other places regarding the next pandemic. Do we think we've hit our quota for global health crises in our lifetime, so we don't need to worry about it? All these cuts leave us ill prepared. It's like assuming the storm won't hit again because we got lucky last time. It's completely ignoring that being prepared and these proactive actions that we take with our involvement with the physical health of other countries serves our purposes too. It's not just we're being good guys, but it's in our own self-interest, but we're sacrificing that for the billionaire class.
Absolutely. And there are ways to be leaders as a country, to lead the free world in an effective, well-run administration or government. I mean, that was something we used to pride ourselves on. I would agree that that is no longer the case. And I would say that, this run on colleges that have these expensive programs, well, that exactly reflects what you just talked about, Infidel. We're going to lose doctors. Right? We are going to lose all types of health professionals. We're going to lose valuable training and education. We're going to lose resources that allow us to stay current with changing viruses, the changing climate, what have you. As these universities and these colleges lose this money, programs that rely on these colleges to be the leaders in, the global outreach of basic well-being, basic health and wellness for people, they're gonna lose as well. And AJ, I think that you had some good points to make about funding cuts on that note, and I'd just like to hear a little bit about your thoughts.
Yeah, earlier you mentioned, how this is an attack on all kinds of higher education and even lower education.
Sure.
And I completely agree. And it's like the cuts and the attacks are coming from everywhere and for any reason. For example, last month, there were cuts to the National Institute of Health, to their grants that were used for research. And this specifically could reduce the money going to some universities by over 100 million. Some of the schools have already had to pull back many of their projects because of these cuts, even though they have been delayed temporarily by core challenges. But as we can see, the funds that were stopped or cut have not been returned to these programs and organizations. So, there have been even other higher education institutions that are feeling really uneasy about the future of their federal funding. There have been other efforts by this administration to cut funding to higher education for pretty much any reason they can find. Last week, 400 million was cut from Columbia University because what the administration claimed that the school failed to reduce anti-Semitism on campus, meaning that they allowed pro-Palestinian protests. And I mean, because of this, they had to cancel grants, they had to cancel contracts, they had to cancel research. It's affecting so many major universities, not even just like they're, it's a small one. No, like this is Columbia, this is John Hopkins. These are major.
Yeah, these are huge. And I don't know of a precedence for this where education is a help to education is a quid pro quo, excuse me, by the government. I've never heard of anything like this. And just like we talked about on Monday, how we had a Christian counselor disguising essentially mental abuse as freedom of speech. We've got the government now characterizing freedom of speech as anti-Semitism. Columbia doesn't want these things. This doesn't help Columbia in any way. People don't get to class any earlier. Operations don't run any more smoothly because people are protesting for Palestinian rights. But they have a right to free speech, and people are allowed to assemble in this country. And who are, Columbia's, council, or excuse me, board of directors to intervene. And people were banned from campus, and people were placed under arrest in the past at these protests. And I'm in New York City. I know that there are pro-Israel protests as well. I mean, this is not just one group. So again, we're back to othering others, right? Othering the people that are not like us, the brown Palestinians, right? The Islamists. It's such a cop out. It's such a weak position to take, to just demonize somebody because you don't agree with them, and then to cut funding that sees to the well-being of millions of people. Because let's face it, this money stretches far, right? I've never seen anything like it, and quite frankly, I find it disgusting. And I'm going to leave Infidel with the last thought on that. So I don't know if you had anything you wanted to add.
Well, yes. And I think that one of the things that's so very important is we hear things like, well, we're going to make mistakes, but we'll correct them. Yeah. Well, that doesn't help the people who are immediately impacted by your cuts. And it's not like, okay, we cut it and a month later we bring it back, that all the other people that were in this whole thing are just sitting like automatons in some closet waiting to get activated and turned back on so the programs can just reactivate and continue as business as usual. When you make changes like these, especially in many of these low income places that USAID is going to impact, these people who are doing it may end up in completely different locations. It's not like those things just get restarted. It's not like the people who needed that service in the meantime get to go, okay, I just put it on ice until now. And I think that's what it's easy for us to forget in a first world country where we do have options. If one option isn't available to us, we may have other hospitals or other resources to reach out to. But oftentimes in the situations we're talking about, USAID and these foreign nations, we are the option. It's us or it's potentially death. Yep. So with that in mind, I think that they're being very glib with the situations.
I want to also, I said we were going to wrap it up, but I think I have something else I want to say, because when you say it's either us or it's death, and then we talk about the plight of these foreign nations, and I've talked about how it's easy to make the target out of the others that are not like us. When this administration came in, they immediately started airstrikes on Somalians. Who cares, right? Just Somalians, right? And then the other day, they started another attack on, let me see here, on the Houthis in Yemen. Now, we've been at odds with the Houthis for a while, but at the same time that all this stuff is going on, a way to distract everybody from it is to just start killing brown people. And I want I think that we need to make a point of that. I think we need to make a point of that and let people not forget that we treat these people as a country. We treat foreigners so poorly to the point that we are willing to give them death and nobody bats an eye. And we're not only doing this with weapons, we're doing this with the pullback of healthcare and science and research. And Infidel, I thought you made a great point that allowed me to open it up to the use of our military in foreign nations. And AJ, I'll ask you to comment before we close out for tonight.
I don't really have any further comments other than if there is a time to not be silent, this is it. This is it.
Yeah, absolutely. And we are never silent here on the Nonprofits. And if you want to see more of what we do, please click one of the links below, subscribe to our channel, share with your friends, and don't forget that there is a little donate button underneath this video. We cannot do what we do without your support. We cannot continue to fight the good fight and execute our mission without our patrons. So thank you for whatever you can contribute, and keep tuning in.